We'll be talking about content in general today and how important is syndication in the world of content. So firstly, we have a very fabulous panel. Can we start with a quick round of introduction with Vivek?
I am Vivek Bhutyani. I am founder and CEO of Lattu Kids. It's India's first kids dedicated VOD platform that we launched a year back. And before that, I used to head syndication for Star India.
So I'm Siddharth. We have a company called Swastik Productions and a company called Wanvari Studios. We are into the content making. We create content for currently television and more platforms in the country.
Plus, you also run a visual effects studio.
Yeah, we've got a visual effects studio called Wanvari Studios. We are also into distribution. We just started a distribution company where we are representing Indian stories to the world. So that's the idea. So we've been present at Midcom, we've been to MidTV, we've been to ATF, we're now going to Discom, and as many.
Anil
Wanvari, I founder and CEO of the IndianTelevision.com group, which includes AnimationXpress. Plus, I work with Midem and have been doing so for 14 years to build the brand of India globally with the help of the markets that they represent. It also includes ATF in Singapore, and I also look after a real estate market at which no Indians are going at all, hardly 3 Indians, but over there transactions worth about $10 billion happen in over a period of 3 days. Common MIP-TV, we have about $1.5 billion in transactions happening or emanating over 3 days. So there's TV, real estate, Indian television, AnimationXpress, radio and music. There's a whole lot of stuff that the people do, and I get blamed for it. My team does that, all that, and I get the credit, but it's actually the team that's doing everything.
Very shortly, I'm Barbaro. I'm the representative from Midem. I'm the Asia head, helping companies from all over Asia coming to MIP-TV and Midcom and make the most of their participation since the last, 15, 17 years.
14 years, you're 3 years ahead of me.
Okay, so we start with Siddharth. Siddharth, as a content creator, how have you seen content creation change in the last couple of years since you have begun?
Yeah, I began a decade
10 years ago, but that's okay.
So I began 10 years back, not 2 years back. Yeah, of course, the whole landscape is changing. We all know that the content space is changing because we have more platforms coming up. The audiences are divided. You have, it's not just only TV and only mass and only making it for the women in the house. Now there's content being created for every kind of viewers that is there in this country. So it's of course changed a lot, and from now I believe is the best time in content creation. We are able to create whatever we believe in and not just think about how do we make it more massy or even niche content. We've got a great country with so many viewers now due to online OTT platforms. Now we have people, even a niche is very big, so I think it's a great time for content creation.
In terms of evolution, your thinking has changed, or is it still the same when you're creating?
See, as a creator, it's very, from the time that I start thinking about a subject or what I believe in, for me it's very important who I'm talking to. If there's a content that's created on television, and say for example, I would say that when I'm making the Mahabharata, so the thought was that we are making it for the larger viewer base, but it should still have its own, the way you present it to the viewer should be much better. We have to scale up the production values in this country. So the diaspora has completely changed. Like from last 10 years back, when my first show was a show called Ambar Dhara. I don't know whether many
Of course you remember.
You would know about it. But from there till now, the kind of content that we've been making is completely different. We are now only making premium content for television, and the way we're telling the story is also completely different because the viewers who have been exposed to television or any kind of content for the last 25 years are now wanting more. We need to upgrade our audiences, we need to upgrade our quality of production, we need to upgrade our way we write our shows. A huge amount of changes have already been happening. I think it's 25 years, we are a growing country. Whoever we are comparing it to are way ahead in time with number of viewers, experience, maturity of the viewers. There are way too many factors involved. So of course, it's a great shift.
Okay, so Vivek, since you have been a broadcaster in the past and now you're on an OTT platform, how have you seen at content changing?
So for me, it's journey from TRP to DAUs.
DAUs explain is daily active users.
That has made it the whole thing very, very competitive for creators and for platforms to kind of engage the audiences, because You don't know whether that guy is going to be on a platform forever or not, what is he going to consume, how long is he going to stay. And then if I give perspective from kids' perspective, the dynamics are completely different. Like when we launched the platform, we thought that we need to bring a lot of content, because to create a platform, you typically put a lot of hours of content. But what we did is we started with a small experiment, we put just 100 hours of content, and we saw consumption happening even that 100 hours. So a lot of kids were watching the same kind of content again and again. There's nothing like boredom within kids. So the patterns are very, very different from kids to adults, and each genre kind of, the way they experience content is very different. So from the creators or from the platform perspective, it's becoming very challenging to understand and get that connect of consumer. And if you don't get that, then you kind of miss, because you're seeing that happening already on TV. Like shows are being pulled off in 4 weeks if they don't perform. So there's a lot of pressure between broadcasters, producers, and platforms to ensure that the content is good. So ultimately, if the content is good, if it sticks with the consumer, then it's gonna kind of survive that life.
So Paul, as an organizer of the world's largest content trade show, what are the sensibilities that you keep in mind while organizing a show when content is changing so quickly, so much?
Well, I've said that at the beginning of the other session. Is this, first of all, it's completely changing the nature of what we're doing, of what people are actually doing in those markets. As was said, basically over the past, those markets are 50 years old. It's basically 70% based on distribution, buy and sell programs, right? Agnostically, they're agnostic about the content genre. We've been trying to see it's more drama, etc. But what we see more and more is actually there's few phenomena. The first of one is the rise of OTT platforms, first of all, which is changing the way that buyers are actually really looking at content differently. We see a quite fragmented world out there. If you are a producer, if you have a content owner of an IP, it makes it, the broader range and opportunities for your content to reach the world are actually very wide. So it's at the same time an opportunity and at the same time a struggle. So in terms of an organizer, ourselves, we need to adapt also in the sense that we do even more screenings of content. That's very important. One of the things that we've done over the last couple of 3 years already are digital fronts, for example. We do a showcase of the best original web content, whether it's series, short forms, or whatever, and we make a compilation of this coming from China, from India, from all over the places, from Europe and from US, so that people get this glimpse of what is actually really happening where and when. So we still have to, of course, of us, it's a lot more production, a lot more of opportunities that we need to showcase more and more in front of the eyes of the buyers, but also of the producers, because one thing it's also changing is also the way you finance programs today. It's also changing. With the rise of new funding solutions like crowdfunding, for example, or even blockchain is something coming very, very, very near, and is going to disrupt a little bit the market. Again, we will have to adapt. But today, co-production, we're really a market about co-production. People are really eager to engage into a very early stage project. The more you get into the project on an early stage, the more you can make it more adapted to your needs or to the audience back in your country. And this is a way also to finance content.
So Anil, as a trade publisher, what's your take on the changing scenario these days?
Well, I'm excited by stories like Tewary's, but I'm looking at what Green Gold is doing, what Cosmos Maya is doing, what DQ is attempting to do now by making feature films and taking them internationally. It's very exciting because I've been looking after MIPCOM apart from being a trade publisher for the past on MIP TV for the past 14 years in India, and it's been a very, very hard struggle. Initially, the broadcasters had to be convinced. Producers used to go. People like Prem Sagar used to go 40 years ago to MIPCOM, and not 40. When was Mahabharat made? 30 years ago, and he found a lot of audiences over there. But there weren't too many people. Subhashji went in, Mr. Chandra went in when he was starting. For the channels, he couldn't get the content, so he went to MIPCOM. If you read his biography, he mentions it over there to get the content. So it's been it's been a hard struggle. Reed has been patient. I've been patient. Industry been patient with my poor jokes, which I keep cracking at them, and I keep pushing them, and I keep prodding them, and I keep getting very provocative at every forum I can get, and I keep flying the flag of India high. So for me, it's exciting as a publisher, as a representative, to see these stories. And when Siddharth strikes a deal, I jump and shout for joy. Or when Rajiv does a deal, I'm very happy. Or when Anish does a deal, I'm happy, because it means the brand of India, which I really want to see succeeding overseas, and which most of us want to see, the brand India is being built further and further.
So Vivek, since you're an OTT platform, also you're selling content, your IP. So what are the different monetizing platforms that you're looking at?
So we also did our own original production. So these are a mix of live action kids shows and animation. So our first IP called Trigo, the story of a tiger cub and his family, in fact was nominated in MIP Junior top 5 global IP. It was selected in the top 5 global IPs at MIP Junior. So it was a proud moment for us because it's our first IP and it made it to a global stage. And for me, it was also like a personal challenge which I wanted to kind of take an Indian IP out of India and make it global. So when we created Trigo, it was created with the ambition of it being a global product. So if you see, in fact, you'll not know that the content has been created in India by a 3D animation studio here. So that's the ambition that we had to kind of take it international. Now, your question was around platforms.
Yeah. How are you monetizing it through different platforms?
Yeah, so for, I would say that for content creators, like today there are so many platforms to monetize. For even a movie producer to create a movie, or even for shows, or for animation content producers. You have TV, you have digital. On digital, again, there are different platforms. Some are global platforms which kind of take your show and debut globally. For example, we've been actually having talks with Netflix to take Trigo as originals on Netflix. So those talks are on. So if that goes through, then Trigo will be launched in all the countries where Netflix is present. So it kind of opens immediately a very big opportunity for any content producer. So we've been open to all kind of platform, because as content creator, you can't be very myopic saying that I'll just put the show on TV, and that's where you kind of lose and you give your IP to TV and then you don't know what happens, because eventually TV doesn't while it owns the IP, it doesn't kind of give the same weightage that you as a creator would give to it. So therefore it's important to keep your eyes open on all different platforms and kind of have discussions in all directions.
So I'm going to ask you a question, if you don't mind. When you were selling Star India product, your perspective was selling a portfolio. Now you're selling a single product, your skin is in the game. It's different, right?
It's different, yeah, it's definitely different, because it's also that when you go as Star, obviously you are a big network, so you're presenting a portfolio and they're looking at Star and then what Star has brought. But when you go as a product, then you're competing with all the 1,000 products that are there. So your products,
Which is tougher?
the second is obviously tougher, because you're creating a brand. I mean, Lattu Kids is still a small brand. We're trying to start from 0 to 1, so it's going to be an exciting journey. Yeah, but
Yeah, said that, so that we all know that you have fought to keep the IP for Porous. And so how has that journey been? I mean, how is it turning out to be for you?
So it's been, of course, it's not something that's very natural for, and he's been on the channel, you would know. It's not something that they just tell you, yeah, come take it. We are waiting for you to ask for it. It doesn't happen that way. But the way the content industry is currently operating in our country, I believe we have a very, there's a form that you have to sign whenever you work with anybody. It's called a vendor form. And I have a little issue with being a vendor with anybody. We need to be partners in creation than being vendors. So this was my thought all through. It's taken me quite some time to come to a stage where I can say that, it's not just about me being a vendor where I'm just making something, creating something and giving it to you. Let's partner it. So it's not just like you take all the risks, because what happens normally in television is that the broadcaster in a way underwrites your property. No, it's not that you don't invest as a production house, you have to invest a lot of money to create whatever you want to create. But the broadcaster underwrites that content, so that's in a way, that's why we own the IP. So that way we had to strike a deal where it was about a 50-50 investment into the series. So we de-risked the channel so that if they would have paid X, now they are paying X by 2 in a way. So the cost factor from their front went down, and eventually I could retain my own 100% IP, and if wherever as a company we exploit, across the world. We've gone around selling into quite a few countries so far. And just started. The show just launched in November, end December in a way. So yes, it was exciting because that's the first time. We had no idea about what to do with owning the IP of your content. You just you have no idea where to go, and people like Mr. Wanvari and Mr. Paul, I think these guys have really helped us in setting up our own distribution department, where we've now gone and we are representing around 100 titles from India, and we are taking, because I felt that there must be many like me who must be thinking what to do, because we are not a network, we are not really, everybody has one different kinds of products, but how do you get exposed? People need to come together, and that's how we started approaching a lot of creators. So the TBF library or the RA library. There was a show that we had made as one of our other companies for Viacom. So we took the format rights from Viacom to sell it as a part of our things. We went down south and picked up shows from broadcasters down to production houses who basically own the IP, because the model in south is different. That's how we created a library of very interesting categories and dramas and reality, scripted, unscripted, all kinds of shows. Very limited number of shows, not a library of 1,000 titles, and we've gone out and we are selling them.
So what are these territories that you're getting most interest from?
So of course, our kind of content primarily travels more in Southeast Asia, mostly because we make 2,000 episodes. So it just doesn't end. So
making 2,000
I'm saying normally the longer format content, which is more 250 also, because more the European side and the American side is more about limited number series, 5 episodes, 10 episodes, which are also going to happen. We're making a lot of web series now, and different kinds of content are being made now. So that's also going to happen, but currently with the kind of longer format, it's primarily Southeast Asian market, the Latin American market, the African market, I think the MENA market. So we are exploring. So the world's divided, like our country is, everything's divided. Not everybody likes all kind of stuff. Something caters to somebody. So that way, whatever content you create, somewhere has a buyer. You need to figure out who it appeals to, and then accordingly target them. So that's what we're doing.
So Paul, as an European, how much interest does Indian content bring to you? And do you think it can travel?
Of course, I've been. This is a tricky question. I've been traveling India since many years now, so I love Indian content.
He loves Indian content and Indian food
But
more than I love it.
How have I could tell you the story of how I've been in contact with Indian content so far, but as I said again, it's a fantastic tower of observation, what I see. Let's take the Bangalore example. I've been in Bangalore over the last 5 years, let's say, and at the beginning I was seeing some very good animation, even if some of the quality of the production were still to be set. People were actually really servicing the industry, basically from working for the big studios in Europe and in the US, and they were starting to show just a few IPs. So that was the first interest. If I take today, I may talk about Hula Studio, for example. I don't know if I'm sure you all know. We've been going to see them, and what I've been seeing is actually just tremendous in terms of quality, first of all. But not only is that they are changing from servicing the industry to, okay, now if you come and see me as a European or whatever, I'm able to come back to you with everything, with the concept, even with the
basically
story.
the art, the backgrounds, the concept, the artwork, so character design, everything.
So only on that level, first of all, it's something which has been really tremendously evolving very fast. And at the end, I've been in front of very talented young entrepreneurs and people. So that is, I think, for the Indians type of the people, first of all. So now talking about content, I'm French, so I've been growing. If we're talking about animation, I've been growing with characters such as Asterix, such as Tintin. So every children in France has a kind of a appetite for comics, which comes from very young. So when you go in here, so the first programs I've been actually watching from India, what I've been listening, are programs like Shotadim, which were a little bit far away from the universe that I would actually know. We were talking about before about mythology. It's true that I've been discovering these kind of aspects of storytelling about mythology. So, in my opinion, there's still a way to go, but it's so fast. It's becoming so fast. I mean, myself, I'm in my 40s. My generation is actually still seeing TV now. Okay, but as I said, the content is traveling so fast now. You can access it through many screens, through OTT and Netflix today. I'm taking the example of Taiwan, but I could take many examples of Indian content that I could actually watch. So now, is it adapted to my global appeal? Maybe not. As a viewer, for example, what has been very near my taste or whatever, I've been very impressed by Porous, for example, which still has this storytelling which is a more global appeal. I couldn't say here what, how, etc. European countries have been knowing India through Bollywood a lot. Okay, there is some cycles. There's cycles of interest, and I think that there is a big interest for the. We've been talking. There's a lot of subjects in the West or in the world, like the women empowerment also. So I see more and more programs from India. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you, but where women are actually taking a different roles. I could see more animations which are having a character design which is, let's say, more and more not white or European. It's not the sense what I did, but some program or animation in Asia are you see more, it's more Chinese, but it's not the case with the Indian program that I've been seeing. So all of that make that I'm interested more and more into Indian content. So we're living in a world now where it's not only TV, that you are passive or whatever. So I go more and more and search for new programs. I have a Netflix thing, I'm on internet also, but my son is actually, I don't know if you remember a few years ago, we had this phenomenon of Korean song coming. He was singing Korean. He was actually 3-4 years old, he was singing Korean without knowing what he was actually saying. So I really believe into the, today in the millennials of today, the millennials of India, the millennials in France, the millennials in, let's say, in developed countries all over the world, they have the same sense of interest somehow. If you take drama is a very good example, which is a really there's a global appeal for drama. Of course, the US, etc., are still the mainstream in this industry. But you see more and more stories coming from all over the world. I think it's going to be the same for India. And I'm sure that the next big success is coming out from this region, I would say, from India. China, if you take China, even on a global scale, China is an economic giant, still is struggling to get a success going out from their country. The government is putting in place a lot of incentives, a lot of policies to ensure that Chinese are actually making out of China. It's still not happening yet. Why? There's many reasons. But I think India stays in the middle of all of that. And we see there's appeal for drama series in Latin America. Who could have thought this possible? People from Chile, from Argentina, from Mexico, they have a sense they love their telenovelas. And somehow it's quite near the Indian series. So we're living in an open world. I really believe that Indian content in general is going to be on another step. And I will be facing Indian content, and the generations after will be facing with more and more good content and good storytelling, because at the end, they don't care. If it's coming from India or from everywhere in the world, if there's a good story, if it's about mythology, if it's about lifestyle, if the good story is appealing to me, I will watch it.
So Anil, you have attended international markets more than 50 times, and in all these years, people keep saying that you have to make a global product, tell a global story. But how important do you think is telling a local story?
if you go back and see Pocahontas, it's a local story, but it's told well. I love it didn't do very well for Disney, but I love that show. Moulin is again a local story. How you tell the story doesn't matter. As what I said earlier, a good story, well told, is a global product. So if it doesn't do well in some markets, either there could be a distribution problem, or there could be a market resistance problem from the local distributors, or the local studios may not want it to do well, or somebody in the theaters, or you don't have enough money to push the product. When the American juggernaut goes out, it goes out like a big juggernaut when they come out with Avatar or some other big shows. And even in television series, they come with lots of money. They keep aside 40% of budgets as marketing budgets, as promotional budgets. They bring their stars. We in India are not really, going in that direction. Even in the film festival, we have a very low budget of. MIB gives a budget of about 1 crore rupees to push a country's content at an independent festival. Whereas if you go to see a local story like Dangal, did very well in China. It's a very local story, but it did very well in a country like China. Secret Superstar is doing well. It's not just because of Amir Khan, but the distributor is pushing the product right. And they're very different stories. Dangal is very different from Secret Superstar. So the point of the matter is our thinking has to change as India. This gentleman listens to me from time to time when he thinks I'm worthy of being listened to. So he did marketing over there at Medcom, at ATF, and he got the attention. People are beginning to take One Life Studios a little seriously. Cosmos Maya is listening to us. Z is listening to me, and to the recommendations that we give them to market, build the brand of India. Korea in 2004 was not known for its dramas. In 2003 or 2, they had a clear strategy that we will build the brand of Korea. America's biggest export, I keep saying this, is its soft power, Hollywood movies, Hollywood shows. On the back of it, they sell everything from jeans to cars, to lifestyles, to Pepsi, to Coke, to war, invading Iraq, Afghanistan through their media outlets and making it sound as they're doing the right thing. We in India have to use our soft power. Going forward, if we have to find a rightful place in the sun, we as media owners and as media players and as even the government has to understand the use of soft power and push it with a lot of budget behind it, market the hell out of your product. And if it's a bad product, nobody will watch it. But if it's a good story, well told, it'll be watched everywhere. A lot of the tests will come now in the next, with the Indian shows. Inside Edge, I believe, did well globally for Amazon. We may not agree with the treatment, but it did well. When I speak to Amazon Prime, they tell me it did well for them in different parts of the world. So our stories can travel, local, it doesn't matter where it's told, as long as you tell it well.
I'll just like to add to what Anil said. So a small example which we did when I was at Star is we opened Turkey. So Star was the first Indian broadcaster to enter Turkey, and then the market boomed. Everybody's now there. But when we were first going there, everybody was questioning that Turkey mein Indian drama kyun dikhega wo? Turkey itself is like a big global exporter of content, and they have more than $100 million of top line from syndication. So when we started with Is Pyar Ko Kya Naam Do, which was the first show which went there, as Anil said, there was a lot of efforts required to not only like push the show but also market it. We personally took Varun Sobte and the whole Starcast to Turkey, and after that the whole equation changed for India. Like after that, Z, Viacom, everybody cracked deals in Turkey, and today it's like a big market apart from Indonesia for Indian content. But when we started, it was obviously a resistance. There was a journey of 2-3 years, and we kept pushing. But once you crack it, and when you have a good product that relates, and that's what is also important, because while it's a very Indian show, Is Pyar Ko Kya Naam Do, it was never created for a global audience, but the story is sort of relatable. It's a passion story, love story, which travels across the globe. So that relatability kind of took the product there, and then it became big when it gets the exposure. So same is the case with Porous. Like it's a good property, and I'm sure whichever market it gets exposure to, it's gonna kind of change the norms for Indian content.
So in all these years that you have been doing syndication, what do you think are the best practices that you need to follow to crack into the international market to create opportunities for yourself?
So I think it's an ongoing journey. It's not like a specific steps that you do, but it's something that you have to do continuously throughout the year. So it's a lot of effort that you put in marketing yourself by way of social media, by way of physically going out there in markets and standing there in front of buyers, It's also about using your connections with distributors, because alone you can't do everything. So there are a lot of good distributors in international markets, so you get connected to them and try and crack deals through them. And then there are a lot of commercial models available, with this distributor. So you kind of have to work on each of these aspects continuously throughout the year. And of course, nothing beats like physically being there. So those are the things that I would kind of put there.
Add to that, be consistent. Show your face all the time. Because, build a bridge of trust between different countries that you're there. Some Indians go there and, they say, I'll go for one market. Okay, I didn't sell, I won't go again. I tell them, don't go even once. If you're not going, if you don't have a strategy, you're not going consistently, do not go. Otherwise, you're going to waste your money.
If I may say something, I think it's also, in terms of mindset, sometimes when it is about to go international, it's also accepting failure. There is, I was at the beginning, I was again in Bangalore again at the beginning, and we were talking about creativity. How creativity is actually the main thing, and there was one of the people who were saying that in animation, for example, there was two struggles. It was to find, to keep talents into the studios, for example, an animation studio. I'm focusing back on animation because I know that there's some studios in the room, but one of the first struggles, is to keep the talents and the artists. And the first one was, yes, to have real artists who have actually the capacity of questioning themselves and at the end accepting failure. So it may sound a little bit philosophical, but if we come back to our markets, to MidTV and Midcom, is that a majority of people who are going there go with a program on their mind, because their boss are sending them in the south of France in Cannes, and they have this program that they have to sell, and they go for it. And they go in the market, they go once, and then after they get bad return on investment, they don't get connected with the people. But I think the main thing is that you're not getting connected with the audiences or with the buyers themselves, which are willing to say to you, no, sorry, I'm not interested. Okay, I'm not interested into that, but can you do a different way? Can you do a shorter version? Can we do a larger version? Can you do? So it's also a lot in terms of mindset to see with the failure acceptance that the more you are consistent, the more you're getting back some feedbacks from buyers, but not only buyers, audiences all over the world. You get to know what is going in Indonesia, what is good in India, but then it helps you on the production. When you are on production, it also helps you to know if, okay, my animation may be good, but am I?
That's when you're taking a small trailer, right? So you want to have proof of concept, whether what you're trying to tell through your story is appreciated. Then, if they tell you, no, maybe, like I was sitting with one of the studios, I can't name them, they said too much, they're producing a series for the world, they said. But when they showed it to a person from Hit Entertainment, which is one of the large animation studios, was one of the large animation studios before it went under, the person told them, there's too much violence. It will not pass muster in some markets. It's a kids animation, so reduce that violence. So this kind of feedback, which can go back, and maybe you don't sell it to that territory, or you adapt it for that territory. It depends on how much it's going to cost you. But always keep listening. Be alert when you're in the market. You never know who you might be next to in the toilet. For it might be the head of distribution for a large studio. You never know who you could bump into in a bar, who you could sit with across the table in a cafe in Cannes, or going up in the elevator. Don't pitch aggressively in the elevator. They'll probably just tell you bugger off. But you can exchange cards at parties. So basically be alert when you're going there. Forget your theplas. Be a local over there and work the local way that you would, rather than just going and sitting with the Indians. It doesn't help you really. What you have to do is really network, and don't wear heels if you're coming to Cannes. If you're a lady, come in flat shoes. If you're a man, don't wear high heel, boots. You'll get exhausted. Very, very basic things. You will make a mark always. You dress very well, Siddharth. You get tired. Your ankles will hurt you. It's almost 6 kilometers of walking every day. The ballet itself is about 3.5 kilometers. That's how much you have to travel from one side to the other. I refuse to wear heels over that. Shoes with heels. I refuse it.
Okay, so
I agree. Once I was the last, I think 2 years back, the MIPCOM, it rained crazy and there was floods. We took it to Kids Screen last year. It was a 7-minute pilot episode. We showed to international TV broadcasters and distributors. We got feedback which was neutral. It was not positive. They said this could be changed, it's too long, there's not fun coming out. We thought if we're planning to create a global product, then let's not do this. Like if already the feedback of pilot is so bad, then ye aage jayega hi nahi. We scrapped the entire pilot. We again got a fresh writer on board. We did a new pilot with the same concept. Then we took to MIP Junior and then it won the top 5 IP. So it's like a journey where, as he said, you have to be open to learning. If you say, ye to mera IP hai and I'm not going to change because some firang told me, then you are gone. But if you're open to listening feedback, you think that you want to do something, then you come back, change, reinvest, then I think it works for you.
Siddharth, I feel you all made the show first and then you all went out to get feedback, right? So how has it been for you?
We did telecast in India first. So, yeah, see, ours was a different model. We were not really going out to seek funding. We were not going out to seek any kind of association or any kind of co-productions specifically for Boris. The idea was that we had our own IP and we had to sell it to recover our costs. We still have it though, but the idea was to step in that direction. So for that we took our own stands at MIP TV as well as Com plus other markets that I spoke about, and the idea was that we show the people who are coming in. So we did some gimmicks also to get some attention, we did some marketing. Since our core thought is that we are just taking Indian stories to the world, so it's so we try to represent India and get the Indian flavor there. We took a few of our people, my team. Basically, my team stood at the main entrance of the Palais, and you are well aware of that. And every individual that was walking into the palace, they were being done the Indian way of doing a tilak and a rudraksh. Mala was given to them, and they were given the leaflet of One Life Studios, because I was very clear nobody knows us, and neither does anybody care about you. So how do you get a little peace of mind in that sea, And that's how we did, and we got a lot of traction through that. A lot of people walked into our stand at the first time at MIP. So that was one. Then again at ATF we did something. We took the lookalikes we created this look of Porus and Alexander from the series. We got some local people there dressed up as them, walking around in the Marina Bay Sand at the convention center. So I believe that you need to be aggressive if you believe in something. You need to be aggressive about it. You can't sit back and wait for it. So with Porus we knew that it's a longer format series, but the idea was that we believe that we have a product which is a very local story, but it's been made in an international way. So wherever we can sell it, at least let's showcase it. We don't know the outcome any which ways. So we've tried to contact, and we have been in process. We've sold to around 11 to 12 countries by now, and we are selling more. And
Show the forum of yours to everyone. It's got One Life on it. That's how passionate he is about the product.
Sandals, thieves, I'll wear it this time.
With One Life.
I'll show you heels this time, and I'll walk with it.
Okay, your choice. Don't complain to me about your aching ankles.
Okay, so I guess we have 5 minutes for 2 questions. Are there any questions in the audience?
Hi, this is Anish from Hot Motion. We are a 2D animation studio. My question is for Siddharth. I'm really curious, in terms of, generally the trend is that you're kind of making a show for the channel, and channel is giving you feedback which they feel is appropriate for this market. And since your model is different, did you really have an audience in mind which was primarily Indian, and then whatever above that is bonus, or were you trying to create something that was truly global? What was the thought process behind that?
Well, I must tell you, it's a good question, because when you're creating something, this is the first thing that comes to your mind when you own any product. So of course, a channel will give you feedback. That's what they do, and luckily we've got a great equation, and we've got some equity built over the years. So and since I was writing and directing the series, so for me it was more important that we don't talk to the rural audiences. So with Porous, if you look at that show, it is not targeted to the rural audiences. It's made for the urban audience. And if you again watch the show, we show the Macedonian side of the world. We are showing these, of course they speak Hindi, so that I couldn't really help much. And of course this content will be dubbed in some other country, in some other language. So even when we watch Crouching Tiger, it's in English and we watch it. So I don't think that's an issue anymore with content. It's crossed a long time back, now we are talking about it. But over here, what we did is that very clearly it's for the urban appeal. You don't make it to the rural sensibilities. The objective is to talk to the urban audience, but primary audience has to be your core audience who you're making it for. Because wherever you will go to sell anything, the first question they will ask you is that, okay, so where are you from? India. Okay, where do you telecast it? Here. So what was the numbers? So don't forget that. Don't think that you're making it for a global audience, you'll make Game of Thrones and they'll buy it from you. They won't. They won't. For way too many reasons. They might. You might get lucky. But I believe if you're making something for your core audience, and you're making it for a platform, unless you're making it for a platform in the US, it's different. But if you're making it as a content in India, your primary audience has to be the audience that you're catering to. And made in a way, told in a way which is global. So you make your local product in a global way. The sensibilities need not be really dumbed down. I think sensibilities need to be somewhere in between, reflecting your culture and your way of telling, because I believe people outside are more interested in your culture than wanting to see you how well you make shows about them. So I believe that is somewhere we always try to ape the West and try to make something that appeals to them, but they don't want to see that because they're anyways making it. It's like someone coming and doing a Bollywood movie here, and you're telling him, bye, I watch it every day anyways. So it's all about that. I think we should just believe in the kind of content we create as to what our basics and our core is, and accordingly make it well and just think it through and write it well. I think that's where it is.
Okay, any more questions? Okay,
Well, you won't get this guy very easily. He's tough to get. He's shooting or writing all the time. Or directing. Or he's writing the next micro moment.
Heels in cans this time, you see.
I'm going to see you. I'm getting you the heels.
His
4-inch heels you're going to walk in.
I'm going to wear it with you.
4-inch
We'll
heels.
walk together.
And a dress to match.
We will walk 6.5 kilometers.
And a dress to match.
Yeah.
The Roman toga and everything.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, but here's another question, Anish. So if you find two strange people in the palais, it's us. You'll be wearing the Roman thing.
Okay,
And
this question is for you, Anil. You've kind of touched over this, but I wanted to get more specifics in terms of like for a first-time producer going to like let's say mid junior or mid-com, what are certain strategies they should kind of keep in mind to not get sort of lost in the crowd, so to speak, or like what should be like a first-time strategy? What's the most important thing? 1 or 2 tips that you could give.
Be clear about what you want, first of all, what you want to achieve from it. Do you want to learn, or do you want to go out and seek buyers, seek distributors? Be clear about what your objective is. That's very crucial going forward. Come prepared with all the material you need along with it. A lot of the guys don't come with the material. They come with big brochures. What happens is they immediately goes in the dustbin. If you can have PDFs sent to them later, fix your meetings in advance. If you're clear about what you're expecting to achieve, you do your planning accordingly, before the market. And be flexible. I'll also ask Paul. He wants a mic. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take the mic on that part. I think it's also it's a mindset for the first time. I think to go there, there's a learning curve about those shows, and I think your mindset should be to meet as much as people as possible. Very simple. I mean, those platforms which are very successful, we are more or less more than 12,000 people coming. So the thing is that your mindset must be on since the day you arrive, let's say in Cannes, from the day you're leaving, because this is we call it, well, it might be an experience. You are there to meet as much as people as possible. And the Palais des Festivals is run by stories like people meet each other the last day, or in the bus, or in the toilets, as Anil been saying. But I think that's your mindset. Then, when you're coming back to your company and to, let's say, report to your partners, to the people of your team, etc., then you will have a better idea. And I think that's it. We're building building a brand, building relationship, building networks, etc. It's a step-by-step thing. So meet as much as possible, you know, stay open. Every country is represented there. People are paying lots of money. It's expensive to, well, depend on return on investment. Once you crack a deal, that's it. You reimburse your thing, right? But people are there for one thing. Don't be shy. Stand out from the crowds. People are actually really looking at projects, new ideas, whether it's coming from anywhere else in the world. Meet as much as people.
Yeah, and also keep calling Devika for further inputs and Priyanka, because they know the Inats, they know the guys in France, in Paris. I mean, I know the senior people, they know the junior people who give them little tips and leads about what's going on. Keep scouring the website fully, because you'll see something which probably everyone else has missed. There could be some competition, there could be some program happening which you should just tap into and call her up all the time. She's very friendly and very good to respond to.
I guess that's it for the panel today. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A big round of applause for Mr. Tewary.